Okay, I'd like to call the Hopkinton Town Council meeting of April 16th to order. Have a moment of silent meditation and salute to the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business, consent agenda. Approve the town council meeting minutes of April 2nd, 2018, executive session minutes of April 2nd, 2018, except the following monthly financial activity report from town clerk.
Wait a minute, can we remove executive session minutes first? Lisa said not ready. Okay.
So a motion to approve town council meeting minutes on April 2nd, 2018, and accept the following monthly financial activity report from the town clerk.
Good.
Motion made second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. First public forum. Anybody wishing to speak on anything that's not on the agenda? Scouts or anything?
I don't think so.
Do you want,
Explain what your
Earth Day.
Your merit badge.
So this is troop one.
Can you come up with the microphone?
Yeah.
220.
Sorry.
That's right, that's correct.
So we have troop 21 Ashaway here, and I think there's almost the entire troop is here, and they're here for citizenship in the community merit badge. So they have to visit a town council meeting or a planning meeting or some meeting like that, and then when we get back to the troop, discuss what happened and how it worked and their impressions of it. So that's why we're here tonight.
Very short.
We found out afterwards.
Now, is it your troop that's doing the Earth Day Sunday?
Yes,
See,
yes.
why don't you tell everybody about that?
Okay, so yes, and if Everett and Logan will just stand up. So we have two scouts here, Everett Mikowski, my son, and Logan Pratt, and they have organized the Earth Day cleanup of Ashaway. And so what we're trying to do is collect as many people in the community, other scout troops, Girl Scout troops, the Cub Scout pack, try to get everybody together so that on Earth Day we can go around Ashaway and collect as much, on Earth Day we can collect as much garbage as possible. So those two scouts are spearheading that effort.
Oh, and,
For a merit badge?
No, but the scouts all have to do service. So they're all involved in it, and we're trying to get different scouts to run different projects so that they get used to what an Eagle Scout project would be like.
Well, that's a wonderful.
So yeah, it's preparation.
Different aspects.
so 9 a.m., if anybody's interested, bring your own bags, gloves, and other equipment, and it's at the Crandall House.
Yeah, we're going to start
at
at
9 a.m.
Yeah, we're going to start at the Crandall Activity Center at 9 a.m. and then we're going to divide people up into groups and try and hit as much of the area as we can as safely as possible.
What day is that, though?
That is a Sunday.
9
Earth Day
a.m.
is a
Sunday
Sunday.
morning?
Yep, April 22nd. Great.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else in the public forum?
Hi, my name is Julie Dennis. I'm from Ashaway. I just have a statement that I would like to read. It pertains to the Ashaway ambulance. I've lived in Ashaway for 39 years and have always felt safe knowing police, fire, and ambulance are available. Our 911 is important to the community because of school, business, homeowners, and elderly housing. We need to support our ambulance and keep it in our own town. In the summer months, our population increases because of campgrounds and RV parks, which means that there's more response and the ambulance is busier. It's essential to keep the ambulance funding here in Ashaway because of response time. If the ambulance is not in Ashaway and we have to get response from Westerly or from even the far end of, like, if Hope Valley responds to the far end of Ashaway, you're talking about a long response time. If it's a very bad heart attack or stroke, time is of the essence in that response. I understand you have asked Ashley Ambulance for 10 points of info. They have provided the information plus a handout to help clarify any information that may be in question. I am hopeful that with the latest information provided to you, you can move on and grant them the funds that the taxpayers agreed to give them. I'm not in favor of spending our tax dollars to support another town. We have an ambulance service here in our town. It is up to us to support them for our own safety, as well as mutual aid to other towns. Mutual aid is just that, mutual aid. We help them, they help us. By saying we will give $250 for each call to Westerly, that changes it to paid calls and not mutual aid. Our own town, it changes it to paid calls. And paid calls means that we would give them the $250 to respond to our town. But you have to realize too, that patients' insurance are also covering that call. So they would be getting insurance from that patient, as well as our tax dollar, which would be leaving Ashaway and going to another town. Not mutual aid anymore. Let's keep our tax dollar here and support our 911. We need to function as one town. If we are going to grant monies to different organizations, we must require the same information from all organizations in town. By requiring certain information to only one organization, we are discriminating and asking for only all of that information from one organization. That means that we're not operating fairly within our town. I understand Ashaway Ambulance was the only one asked for all of this info. Maybe it's time to have an ambulance tax, just like we have a fire tax. Then they would be funded and staffed to keep the ambulances up to date. It's just a thought, putting it out on the table. It sounds like they're having a hard time and we're not really totally supporting them. There seems to be a lot of problems with not getting the sufficient answers that you want. So in thought, just to avoid a lot of problems, maybe we should think about having an ambulance tax. And then we wouldn't go through this every year. Because I do remember about 6 years ago, I also had to come before the board and ask, why did you already give the money to Hope Valley and you did not give it to Ashaway? So I was here before 6 years ago doing the same thing. So I'm back doing the same thing, telling you that this is important. The taxpayers do want it here, and we do not want to spend money in another town. If this is our tax dollar, we want to keep it right in our own town. Okay, and that's my statement. Before I leave the podium, I just want to say, kudos to you guys. I myself have 3 Eagle Scouts, one who still does community service here, and good job. Keep going. You're doing great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, support.
Anybody else in public forum?
Eric Karen, Treasurer of Ashaway Ambulance. First of all, I'd like to thank Tom and Barbara for meeting with myself and a couple of members of Ashaway Ambulance to work on these 10 questions in part. I'm a little disappointed that votes are being taken tonight. I was kind of under the impression that would take place. We were told that once we answered the 10 questions that at least some of the monies would be released. When I asked to be on the agenda tonight, I filed an email, I sent an email to Town Council President Franklin Duffy, who's not with us tonight, and asked how I got on the agenda. And I was given kind of a song and dance. Simple question, how do you get on the agenda? Didn't ask what the agenda was I was presenting, just asked how do you get on the agenda. So I got a response. Hi, Eric, before I do that, more importantly, I need to know what happened with the recent audit, the finalized business plan, and other questions the council gave to Barbara on the anti-nepotism policy. That's not what I asked. I simply asked how to get on the agenda. So he knew we'd be going through all of this. Bob was in contact with the town council on what we'd be doing. So the second email I got was, okay, we need time to review that info as a group. Okay. Once this review is our intent as a council to make a decision one way or the other. Again, we were told that if we answered these same questions, that the money would be released. The process of putting the agenda on goes through me. Still doesn't answer my question. Once an item is ready to be placed on the agenda for a decision. Again, didn't ask whether there was going to be a decision on the agenda. I asked to be placed on the agenda. A little concerned about this. Is this how the town of Hopkinton operates? Not really sure. And I'm going to ask several other questions which we've answered. So here we are, this email took place April 6th. Okay, so I sent an email out to find out about getting on the agenda for tonight's meeting, and really didn't get a straight answer. I don't think that's a good way to operate a town. And then I started looking through all this paperwork that's been going back and forth. There were 2 articles written in the paper. I was kind of blindsided by them. A couple of things that we talk about being truthful and honest. Barbara and Tom, I met with you guys. We talked, Barbara, a couple times a week over the past few weeks, trying to get all this sorted out. At no time did I feel misled by you, and I hope you feel the same way. We're not here to hide anything. And the one thing that keeps coming up is that the town wanted to know about the $50,000 grant and how it was being used. Every single year, that money has been given to us. It's been proven where it's gone. So at no time, and Barbara said to me recently, we don't care what you spend the money on. Fix your building, buy a new ambulance, doesn't matter. We put into payroll every year to cover one shift. And we've proven that time and time and time again. That $50,000 is not hidden anywhere. We've been transparent about it. We're not hiding it. We're not spending it illegally. We're using it to provide a crew Monday through Friday. Period. It's in black and white every year. We can go back to all the records. You guys can all see them. You've seen them. So at no time were we misleading you. Were there some shortcomings? Most certainly. I'm not going to deny that. Is there things we can do to be better? Most certainly. That's why I got back involved. People just either don't have the time or they don't have the knowledge to do what's maybe best. Not that they're doing anything wrong, they're not doing anything illegal. Maybe they're not doing it the best because they just don't know how. And maybe they're afraid to ask questions. And I'll tell you what, that's kind of what happened up here. We were blindsided. And I think a lot of people were, I know that Mr. Dumas was bullied the first time he came up here. He was bullied. He was the only one in the room. And that, to me, in front of a town council, is not proper at all. You know, one of the questions we were asked is we need to provide paperwork if one of our staff leaves. Now, we've discussed this before. Can the town council, would they please share with me why we don't have a dog warden in town anymore? Why she left? Or why she's out on leave? Can we discuss that here openly? Because you're asking the ambulance corps to provide documentation to why personnel leave. So, mano a mano, not really sure. Can't discuss it, can we?
We can't have it
Exactly.
right now because it's not on the agenda.
I understand that, but my point is the question is you can't discuss it. If somebody leaves, an employee, and you have to understand, we are not employees of the town. I read the town charter again last night. Nowhere in the town charter does it say that the town council or the town manager has any authority over fire ambulance. So to bring in an outside agency is actually against the law because of the mutual aid agreement written by the state of Rhode Island. So when you start looking at this stuff, it opens a lot of questions. Because we don't have a dog pound in town, are you paying West 3 pound, $250 a call to put in mutual aid?
No, of course not.
Same situation.
There's no discussion.
You know,
Can I just address something so that people understand what's going on? There's a law in Rhode Island called the Open Meetings Act. And it requires, before a public body can discuss any substantive topic, it has to be posted on the agenda with at least 48 hours, business hours nowadays, notice to the public. So, and again, for the scouts, you're here to learn tonight, the council members tonight are prohibited by law to respond to topics that are not on the agenda. So I want, particularly the scouts, and I think Mr. Parent knows this,
Most certainly.
the law prohibits them from responding substantively to some of the questions that are being asked. So I just want to explain that because one could assume that people don't have answers or they don't want to answer. They're actually legally prohibited from answering. So I just thought it might be a good opportunity to explain that, particularly with the scouts here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. But again, I did try to go about trying to get on the agenda, and 3 or 4 emails later, I didn't get an answer as to, it was like, well, you can't get on the agenda because there was no decision you made. Well, I don't believe that to be true. And I think the town council should look into that. There's nothing on the website that says, how do you get on the agenda? Who do you contact? I couldn't find anything. So just point of interest. The other item, reading through this is that, our license was suspended for 2 days because of a medication was out of date. And it says in this that the town of Hopkinton basically ensured that West Amherst was coming into our town. Again, the town as a whole, per your charter, has no authority to do that. They have no authority to pay an outside agency. I want to explain, again, open forum, that if, perfect example, the night of the fire retreat meeting that we had, Ashland Ambulance sent 2 full crews from the fire station to Westerly for a structure fire. So what happens? Does the town of Hopkinton say, you know what, we're sending Ashland Ambulance to Westerly now. Should they pay us $250 per call? When we go to Hope Valley Mutual Aid, should Hope Valley, which is the money you give to them, pay Ashland $250 a call? So why does the mutual aid agreement is thus? If this was to occur, if Charleston Ambulance comes into Westerly 4 times a day, $250 a call, if everyone starts to do this, understand where I'm coming from. At the end of the week, the town of Westerly would have to pay Charlestown $7,000 a week or so, on average, just based on mutual aid calls. So what I'm trying to do is educate people to understand why these rules are in place and why these laws are put in place. So this doesn't happen. Where does it stop? Where does it stop? Yes, we'd like to put more crews on. We are an anomaly down here. We're the last ambulance corps in the state of Rhode Island, I believe, that doesn't have full-time crews on because we're a small community. We'd love to have $250 a call. I did the math. If you paid us $250 a call, you'd have to give us $133,000 in grant money. It'd be great. And I think going forward that we need to head in that direction, whether we're doing an ambulance tax or not. But we need to come up with some information so we can provide proper service. And not that we're not. Lastly, I'd like to say one thing. At no time, in all of my years doing it, I've been in EMT since 1989. I'm one of the 10,000 in the EMT members. But at no time in the past 5 years, the past 10 years, have we ever received a complaint about improper service or was a patient treated wrongly. The only complaints we get nowadays is, do I really have to pay my insurance bill? That's what we get. We get calls all the time for that. Geez, I got my ambulance bill, it's kind of high. Well, that's what it is. We don't just say, well, you know what? Barbara said, we like Barbara, we're going to send her a $100 bill. And Tom, and he's been a frequent flyer, we're going to send him a $500 bill. We don't do that. That's not how it's done. It's done through insurance. And insurances don't pay. We can send out a bill for $1,300. We might see $300. So when you start doing the math and paying a crew and paying equipment, people need to understand that an ambulance, a cheap ambulance now is a $250 million. $250,000 equipped, $400,000 equipped. Okay? We need one. That's our next big goal. Where do you think we're going to come up with $400,000? We're not. So what happens? So does the town want to take that over? Does the town want to provide ambulance service for the town of Hopkinton? Does the town have $4 million to buy a piece of property and put up a building and buy an ambulance and fund it 24/7? This is what we need to think about as a whole, as a group. How do we provide the right service to this town, keep people safe, and keep it as inexpensive as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Okay, moving on. Town manager's report.
Thank you. On April 4th, Chief Hollow and I attended a meeting with Vin Rasta in preparation for the upcoming collective bargaining negotiations with the police department union and other related labor matters. And on April 5th, the town received confirmation from prison that they have now converted 498 of the 519 existing streetlights to LED lights, which represents about 96% of the lights in Hopkinton. They are currently working with Siemens Corporation to install and National Grid to energize the remaining 21 streetlights. The good news is that we're only paying for those 498 lights, LED lights, that have already previously been installed, so we're in pretty good shape.
We received a bill yet on the electricity cost on those?
It's a very complex process, and it's taken a lot of time, a lot of Brian Russell's time, because we have to coordinate with National Grid and PRISM. The expenses shift. The expenses now go to from National Grid, and we still pay Direct Energy, and they have a formula that they use. But the bottom line is that even paying the principal interest for the first 10 years, it looks like in the first year we'll save between $25,000 and $30,000 as a result of not having to pay National Grid. Their rates works on it. So by purchasing those streetlights, which is a significant accomplishment, and even better is turning them into LED lights, that saving should be at least that for 10 years. And then once the loan is paid off, it should dramatically increase that. So.
All right, thank you. Any questions for town manager? Okay. New business. Discuss and consider setting a hearing date for the zone amendment to the zoning map filed by the town of Hopkinton and Coastal Plastics, Inc. for property located at 35 Mechanic Street, identified as Assessors Map 15, Lot 13D. So you,
No, Lisa, when do you think?
Well, it's a zone change, so it has to be advertised 3 times prior to the hearing date. Looking ahead to your town council agendas through May, your next regularly scheduled meeting is the 7th of May. I know that you like to have the advisory opinion from the planning board that I believe it would be scheduled on May 2nd.
There's something going on the 7th, I'd say the 21st.
The 21st.
21st, I
Yep.
think.
Good.
That gives everybody plenty of time to get that information back.
We have another one on the 7th,
Yes.
Yes.
May 21st.
20. Oh, sorry, I'm the wrong one. 21st, that would be.
21st.
You're right.
Okay.
Tom, should we explain to the public here or at the next meeting?
I've been there before, and we can't, because it says it's only to set a hearing. Oh, it does say discuss.
Discuss, yeah.
This is
Well,
discuss-
discuss
Because
setting a hearing.
people
so
don't
we
want to know
can't-
why we're proposing to
Okay.
change the zoning there.
Well, wait a minute, Kevin, if we explain why,
Well,
That's,
or maybe you could just,
Maybe I can
like
explain it.
2 words, you could explain why.
it came to the town's attention that the zone map for this particular property has been incorrect for a number of years, through no fault of the property owner, and it just needs to be fixed. And I talked to several of the town department heads, tax assessor, zoning official, the planner, and the town clerk, each of whom did a whole bunch of independent historical inquiries. Everybody, including me, agrees that it should have been manufacturing all along. This has been a manufacturing plant since the 1880s.
Yeah.
So it just needs to be fixed, and it's time.
okay. And last public forum.
What day you gonna do it?
May 21st.
20th.
Oh,
Scott Bill Hurst, 20 Maple Court, Ashway. First, I rise as the town moderator of Hopkinton to remind people of the annual financial town assembly on May 1st. And it's very crucial. There's no votes taken. I don't believe there's any conflicting resolutions. At least I have been informed there will be. But that is the time for people to address the town council on the final, their final thoughts on the budget before the town council adopts it and submits them to the voters in June. I know it's not posting the agenda, but I just want to say one thing about the Ambulance Association. I remind the viewers and the public that if you go on the Town of Hopkins website, it states, written by our solicitor, the reasons or concerns the town has for the Ashway Ambulance Association, and people can review that and draw their own conclusions. But I would respectfully hope that the Ashway Ambulance Association, either through their offices or their attorney, respond to what is posted on the town website. I think that's how you get respectful dialogue and how you address issues. And I've only seen basically, I've heard both sides of that issue, but it was a well-written piece by our solicitor, and I think the attorney for the Ambulance Association should do the same for their offices and respond to that multi-page commentary that's on our town website. I think that is the intelligent thing to do, that's a responsible thing to do, and I think it's the best interest of the Ashway section of town. Thank you.
Anybody else in the public forum?
Could I just do an informational? You heard from the scouts already. The Westerly, the Ashway Ambulance, let's start over. The Ashway Library has started a capital campaign and for their addition. They have a fundraiser coming up on May 5th, 4 to 7 p.m. It's going to be a fundraiser for the library, and it's called Boots and Books at the Carriage Barn. The flyer that they sent out explains that it's a rare opportunity to visit a private museum just over the Connecticut border. Get out your cowboy boots and Stetsons. Imagine the past rolling by on wooden wheels. See 32 beautiful antique carriages circa 1750 to 1820. Visit the amazing sleigh barn. Greet impressive Schreier horses and two new foals. Enjoy food, drinks, in a beautiful setting with live music by the seasoned wood band. Attendance is limited, so you can call the library to reserve a spot at 377-2770. Children 12 and under are $30, and the admission for adults is $100. And that, I think I said May 4th, 4 to 7. The other item is just a thank you, and this was a little unusual, but it was a thank you from Arthur Smith, who is the animal control officer, one of them in Westerly. And he sent a letter to thank Chief Justin Lee at the fire department. He wanted to thank the Hope Valley Fire Station for the town of Hopkinton's rabies clinic. It was held at the Hope Valley Fire Station on Sunday, March 25th. And he wanted to specifically thank Deputy Chief Jason Caswell for helping with the layout of the building, and also to thank Deputy Chief David Caswell for opening and closing the building, and he stayed for the whole event. They normally this was held at Public Works, so it was down in Hope Valley, and they said that in 2 hours they were able to vaccinate 92 animals, and everything went very well.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that was all.
Okay.
It's a nice thing to be down there.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Just like that.